Morning, everyone. We're just going to give it a few minutes and let all of the attendees join the call. Thanks so much for joining us. Okay, as we're letting everyone come in, we are just going to start. So once again, thank you to everyone for joining our World Crafts Council Europe webinar on craft and sustainability this morning. We have an excellent panel of 3 speakers coming up that we're very excited to hear from, and thanks to everyone again for joining us from our panel. For anyone that's logging in this morning and hasn't heard about World Crafts Council Europe before, we are a membership organisation and we're set up to encourage an international contact between the craftspeople of different countries. And our mission is to elevate awareness and appreciation of crafts on an international level. Currently, we are made up of 33 member organisations and we're spread across 20 European countries. This is the first in a series of webinars that we are hosting since we've become official partner of the new European Bauhaus, which is all about sustainability, beautiful aesthetics, and the environment, and it's very much part of the European Green Deal. If you aren't aware of the new European Bauhaus, very much encourage you to go onto the website and take a look. There are a lot of call to actions at the moment, and there's going to be a lot of exciting projects coming up in the next few months as part of the initiative. So on to our panel for today. We are very excited to be joined by Álbio, Simone and Victoria, who will each be sharing their expertise and knowledge on craft and sustainability. I won't go into too much, I'm going to let them do all the talking this morning. I know we've got a lot to get through. For our audience, just to let you know that the session is being recorded, so if you're not able to stay for all of it, it will be up on the World Crafts Council Europe website and social media after or later on this afternoon. If you have any questions for our panel, please feel free to put them into either the Q&A or the chat function, and we will be directing them to the panel at the very end of the session, and we'll also allow them to ask each other questions as well. So without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing and let our first speaker, Álbio, present. Oh, sorry, Álbio, yeah, you're over here. Elisa, if there's anything you wanted to add, please feel free to do that.
First of all, I want to apologize, but we had a little bit some inconvenience this morning for the presentation of a project to the regional government, a problem with a platform. So sorry to be late in connecting me. Fortunately, not so many minutes, but I'm sorry because it's a very important moment. I know that Shona yet presented our webinar, our 3rd webinar at the moment, and I thought also that she presented our participation in the network of new European Bauhaus, and today's topic is a very central topic in this program, and I think it's so interesting to speak about sustainability and the circular economy and the role of craft in building a new, better world, we hope, after the pandemic. So thank you so much, and sorry once again to be so late. And please, Álbio, I leave the stage to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So, hello, good morning. I will now share my screen. Is everything okay? Yeah, you can see it.
Yes, perfect, Álbio.
So good morning. We have very short time, so I try to make this brief. I think this is central question. All the issues about sustainability, and it's the right moment now with the situation, the pandemic situation that we are living. It's the right moment now to bring this question. We all know that sustainability is on the table for decades now, but it seems that finally we are facing it on the real terms and taking the things in real matters. And I would like to start with a quote from Ailton Krenak, indigenous leader from Brazil, that really struck us on our work as designers. He says, and this is a free translation, I won't take any responsibility for this translation, so I put it also the original in Portuguese, that bibliography is for those who have no memory. This is not important about books. It's not an issue about what is your terms, but it's about what kind of knowledge does it really matter for us to take in account, and how do you choose this to build your own memory. So memory is in the end what we have to focus on. It's what remains from your physical experiences. It's where you should focus when you want to make new things, when you want to create, and when we want to think about whatever is sustainable. How do we can think further? And when this pandemic, what was two elements were very important for us to rethink our practice again here in our studio, was the fact that we could not travel. So we had to dwell in our places where we live. We had to recognize again our surroundings. We had to look to what we have and where we were again, and that this was transversal. So this was common to everybody. There was no classes or borders, and this really, I think it was very interesting for us in the sense that really give the depth to the question of sustainability, which we work in our studio since the beginning. We are actually now this month celebrating 17 years of studio, and we and we had this very present from the beginning. So for us was an opportunity to bring out this in a new light, and it was easier to bring further the concept of the situated crafts, traditional crafts, which we prefer to use the term situated crafts to remove this tradition term. And I would like to bring you here the case of the basket weaver, which I believe it's always the most frontal, direct, and simple perspective of how to deal with the environment and how to make things, how to design things, because it puts in very clearly that there are other ways of relating to nature, there are other ways of creating, there are other ways of attributing meaning, of conceiving life, of conceiving nature. The basket weaver, he plants his own trees, he cares, he molds and shapes its branches to get the branches in the thickness, the length, and the flexibility he wants, and has this very intimate relation with nature. But he also then goes through the process of treating these plants, of processing the material, and then of, from this material, making something. And at the end, he's also behind the counter in the market selling these products. So this is a kind of spectrum of design that we as designers cannot reach. This is from a relation to the material until the last part of the market, in this it's the widest spectrum that you can have on product development, we would say. And with this idea also of fixation and of recognition, and this transversal idea of being impacted all together for the first time in this way, when we are all connected and we can all discuss it and we can all live the situations and share it in a different way. We started a project that was present in our talks for years, and decided now to go further with it, and we call it Common Origins. And it's about exactly the situated crafts, you know, the knowledge, the skills, and the work, the labor. So I'm going through the main points that we want to bring further with this project, and try to contextualize in our topic here today, so we can maybe even bring discussion to the table, which would be great. It's one of the goals that we want to reach with this. So there is some kind of poetry in the presence of this traditional craftsmanship, repeating the same thing for thousands of years in the same shapes with the same materials. It brings this contrast with the synthetic material culture that we have now. So it gives the possibility for us to be critical about the ever-changing material culture that we have around us, the objects. What is the materiality in our days? What is the utensils, the gadgets that we use? The presence of these crafts, preserving this way of making and this relation with nature, brings out these objects that make us continue to reflect on our contemporary material culture. So it's kind of a way to question the novelty and what is exactly innovation. And also it's kind of it maintains present the idea of a non-nonsense relation to nature. Another point is, which is the one that we have to discuss less, I think, it's their relation to nature. They keep on using natural materials mainly. There's also this respect and following of the biological cycles. And in the end, these people also contribute to the management of resources. And there's this intimate relation to a healthy interaction in the end with their geographies, to which they belong. But there's also this dynamic harmony between maker and its environment. You know? So it's very important to look at this. On the other hand, there's also something that we kind of have always present, but at the same time kind of forgot its essence, which is functionality and usefulness. Today, an object gives nothing back. All this capitalistic vision of design in the end also is that things are only important when they're useful. So production, origin are not important, disposability is not important. A car is only useful when it runs, but while it runs, it gives nothing back. And if it's disposed, also it gives nothing back.
Álbio, sorry to interrupt you.
Yes?
This is Victoria, the other panelist, but
yeah?
Your presentation is blocked, so we couldn't see any of your, yeah.
And now what do you see, Victoria?
It's just the beginning, bibliografía, and from Kemsauta Memoria.
Really?
Just the beginning, yeah.
No, this, oh, okay, so you didn't see any of my slides?
No, you were talking, I was about to tell you.
Thank you. And now do you see the
Yes, now I can see them.
Ah, okay, so you didn't see anything of what I was showing. Okay.
No, I mean, I was listening to you. Okay.
Thank you, Victoria.
Sorry, yes.
So I was sharing these images with you. Thank you so much, Victoria. So I was showing this pity, no? So I was talking here alone with the same slide. I will go through then. I was just giving you this image of the basket weaver and how he works. I thought you were seeing this. And now I was passing these examples and this slides with the main phrases this to that they stay there. Now you are seeing a blue image, right? With a blue background.
No, it seems to have been stuck again, Álbio, if you want to.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't worry. If you want to just kind of go back out and not have it in presentation mode, we can still see the slides that way.
Wait. Just a moment. Kathy? Can you put the router out of the... Okay, just a moment. Can you see now the blue background?
Yeah, we can see that image. It's just when you go into presentation mode, it doesn't seem
One
to
moment.
move forward.
And now you see it changing?
No, I think you're best just to keep it not in presentation mode, and you can flick through the slides.
Okay, one moment. I see if this is an internet problem.
Getting a good insight into the studio anyway.
Sorry. Do you see it changing now?
No, I think it's just possibly your presentation mode. So if you, as I said, if you want to keep it like that and you can flick through that way.
Okay, and this way it works.
Yes.
Okay, good. So we will see it like this. Sorry for that. So we were at talking about the beauty of usefulness. Another point, let's go through this faster so we also don't take all the time. It's their relation with culture, okay, which is one layer that it's probably what differentiates this situated crafts even more from contemporary design practice. These are things that are in the end validated by time, and they offer us this way of question also through their unique codes and shapes and relation to culture. They help us in the end. They liberate us from this standardized aesthetics and trends. So it's a way that, in a way, these crafts, they don't evolve by rupture or discontinuity like fashion or trends. They through their repetition, they maintain their continuity and they evolve in this way. So it's a continuous process that helps us to identify this conflict aspect of trends, of fashion, of collections, of fairs, and it puts it in question also. So it helps us also identify what we could change in this. No? Now you're seeing the slide change, right? Yes. Okay.
Yes, perfect. Álbio.
Great. And therefore, these are as contemporary as it gets. You know, they're like they have all the elements that we could understand as contemporary for their relation with nature, for their stable economics, for their circular economy, for the way that they inhabit in a healthy, caring way their environment, and also how we could understand them as design practices. This is where we want to get. You know? So there's a lot of things there that we could look at and we can learn from to establish another way of another design philosophy. So with this project, we want in the end to bring new opportunities for this way of making, of thinking, of conceiving, of understanding the environment, surroundings, the natural landscape, but also the cultural landscape. So we want to go from research, which we are already doing. I invite you to go to the website, religioncommun.com, where you can see already the first videos and the first research we're doing, but also going into a big discussion about design practice, you know, from the materiality until what is commerce and distribution. That's why we also started this online shop where we put these products and we want to provoke a lot of discussions about what is the value of the price of manual labor, for example, which is a deal that is kind of pushed further with our bellies without really facing it. going back to our basket weaver, yeah? So we can see that these things, in the end, taking the words of Octavio Paz, they are made by the hands and for the hands. So there's a lot to learn here. And they also keep us safe from a lot of the things that we understood that were not working. So we still, we can look at these people kind of the indigenous in our Eurocentric culture, you know, the ones that maintain this relation with the environment that we built a long time ago. But we should look at them now, not as something nostalgic from the past, something romantic. We have to break this dichotomies of tradition, innovation, design and crafts. You know, we have all past and present. These things are real, they are here, and they can be a real, very helpful lesson now in the moment when we are really rethinking things. Because what has to happen is really a change of paradigm. We cannot stay in the same like nonsense production and novelty desperation that we were before. And so, yeah, this is our idea, you know, that the situated craft culture, they can help us understand how to evolve into a production system that, and design system that somehow, or design practice, like I said, that somehow gives back, that takes care of the environment and the climate and cultural all at once. You know? And these practices are right here. They are part of the present and of contemporaneity. Yeah, this was my point. I'm sorry, I was a bit, I passed some things ahead because of this trouble here with the presentation. But I hope we got a point. I hope also that when we have the Q&A, if there was not clear, I can then help make some things more clear. Thank you.
That's wonderful, Álbio. Thank you so much. And you're right, at the end, if anyone has any questions for the Q&A, they can definitely direct them your way. So thanks so much.
Yeah, I'm sorry, because with all this mess, I was trying to make a few points more here that I had cut my flow in the end. But I hope I can make things clear better later.
We will definitely have time at the end. You can definitely go past anything, and this is all a part of being digital at the moment anyway, so don't worry about it.
Sorry for that.
Thank you so much. Simone, if we could get your screen up, we'll go with you for the next presentation. Thanks again, Álbio.
Yes, hello everyone. Thank you very much, Álbio, for your presentation. It was super interesting to hear and see. Maybe even better to hear your thoughts even more clear behind it. So that was very cool. I'm gonna try to share my screen. It's not gonna be. Yes, I think it should work now, right? Is it on full screen?
Yes, perfect.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you so much. Sorry also for the mess on the background. I'm at my studio space at the moment, and yeah, for me, making and trying out the materials is super important. So that's why you see all the stuff around me. I'm Simone, and I run my own independent design studio. Today I would like to talk a bit about sort of post-production, I call it, which refers to my own works, but also to the waste material I think our main production currently creates, and where I think we should deal with completely different. This is a portrait of me as a designer, and for me, it was important to put on these glasses because I think a designer is still often seen as somebody who is making something pretty or making something beautiful. And for me, design is much more about than the surface. So it's really about looking beyond the surface and also looking at the backside of a product. Where do your materials come from? What happens at the end of the life of your product? So it's a sort of multi-eye vision I think you have to have as a designer. This is me actually when I was 8 years old. I come from Utrecht in the Netherlands, and my mother was giving sewing classes at home. So we had more than 10 sewing machines at home, and for me this was a sort of possibility as a child that you can create everything you wish for. I think here I was making sort of shoes out of paper with inlaid fake fur, not one of my best designs, but I think the imaginations you have as a child, that you can create everything that you can envision, is still something I really want to keep up in my work, in my daily work in the studio nowadays. This is my studio in Rotterdam. It's in the harbor area, and it's actually an old warehouse. And now the municipality, they gave it to all kind of small startups who completely changed around this environment from being just an empty warehouse. And we all built our own little studios in the space, which is also sort of a reusing of an old building in a new way. So here's the place where I work nowadays. For me, it's very important, as I already said, to work with materials, to try things out. For me, the material is always the starting point of my design. This is our workshop downstairs, and where I am now is upstairs. Today, I would like to give you a little bit of an insight in my work, since it's a very short presentation. Well, I hope I can give you a clear idea, but there are 3 elements in my work that always sort of come back for me. I think as a designer, for me, it's very important that you always think, what am I making and why am I making this, and what is it that I want to add to this world? For me, the question mark on the screen is about that. And because already so much stuff is being made, you really have to have sort of a good reason why you want to add something. And a craft is for me about the sort of experience and knowledge you can have with working with a certain material. And the surprise is for me often that for me, I see my role as a designer is that for me, no materials should be perceived as waste. I think if you put time and energy in a certain material, you can make something precious out of anything. So we should try to actually, as makers, use as much materials that is by others perceived as valueless, and try to add value with what we're doing. I want to quickly go through a few of my projects to show these thoughts. One of them is the Flisco Recycled, the Post Plastic and Post Adidas, and the new old chairs and the wildflowers. I hope I can make it in time, so I'm going to try to do my best. Flisco is a company I'm already working with for a very long time, not since 1846, but they exist since 1846. I'm working with them since a few years, since I actually did an internship with them. And Flisco is a textile manufacturer based in the Netherlands, in Helmond. And they're producing wax printed cotton textiles. They produce this mainly for the West African and Central African market. Very colorful textiles, and they're produced with a wax printing technique. I could already talk for hours about only this company and their technique, but they have a very unique printing process, so that they have actually first step where they put a wax on top of a textile, and after dyeing that, they put it in a dye bath, and where there's no wax, the fabrics get colored, and that's layer after layer after layer. So it almost takes 27 steps for a product to get printed. And this is a very complex printing technique, especially if you compare it to nowadays very common inkjet printing technique. And when I was doing my internship there, I noticed that there were actually bins next to every step in the factory like this with beautiful textiles. And when I asked about it, it happened to be reject, so waste material, and everything was being destroyed. So I proposed if we can try to make something else with it, because I think it was such a waste. So much energy went into making this beautiful product, and only because it had a certain misprint, it was being rejected, but still it had a lot of qualities. So for example, it could happen, these are some reasons why it would be rejected, and it's also understandable if you look at it from their perspective, but it's such a shame if you see all the materials. So it could be that one layer doesn't fit on top of each other, or that the ink is not completely filling the print, or that there's like wax is breaking, so the ink is all running through. So what I did is I made a proposal for them, is like, what if we can try to look at your material as just a new thing, and make sure. They were afraid it would compete with their own market. They didn't. There are very high quality standards, and they didn't want to get a B quality of textiles enter the market. So I made a proposal like, how can we use those textiles, but also really create new possibilities with it. So for me, it was important that we were not going to use it as a textile, that the print would be unrecognizable, but to really make something else out of it, but still show the beautiful qualities the materials had. So this whole research started for me with just making a lot of tryouts with the material, and just by hands getting to know the material, trying to make it thicker, trying to make it open, and see if we can find new application possibilities. And the first outcome, which I was very enthusiastic about, was just actually textile coiled up around one point. It was not adding any other materials to the textiles, but it was just trying to keep the quality of the textile itself, the tactility, but also really show the vivid colors it had. So we made a series of carpets out of that. This is pictures taken inside the Flisco factory, and this is the first rug we made, still completely made by hand, but nowadays we made some tools. It's still a lot of hand work, but I think it's that also shows the beauty of the material, and working with the waste material, because it creates every time a sort of unique product. So this is, if you look up close, you see still all the small color lines that come from the original printed fabrics, but they create sort of new patterns when they are being coiled up to the carpets like this. And what is interesting about it is, because we're working with this waste material, every carpet becomes unique. And I think that's also something which is key, is that every waste material needs some sort of time and attention. I think it's beautiful to see how many different patterns and colors you can get out of it. These are some examples. And I think that's also sometimes a problem if you, well, I'm going one slide back, if you, that all the carpets are unique, and nowadays people are so used to sort of mass production, trying to make everything equal and completely flawless. And I think something for me, actually, with working with your hands and working with waste materials, you truly create a product with a story, and so you add a lot more value to it. This is a book I made when I was doing the whole research inside the materials of Flisco, I made a lot of tryouts and did a lot of research into the factory, and I bundled this all together in a book. And I did this mainly because I wanted to show to people, like, if they have an open mind and if they try to look at their own process and in their own materials in a new way, that there's so much more possible. So we made this book. It was also a bit a way for me to show to other companies, like, can be so much potential in things that maybe you as a company see as waste material. And it was also a tool for me to explain my way of working, because for me, I always start with the material as a starting point. And for me, I'm gonna try to see what are the possibilities for the material and what is the object that fits with this material. But I would never start with saying, okay, I'm gonna design a table and then find the materials together with it. But it can be quite a challenge for companies to think like that, because on forehand, I can never tell them what will be the outcome. I can only say, okay, I want to do something with this material, but I don't know what will be the outcome. So, and in this book, I can show a bit this process, and that if you take time for this process, there always will come something beautiful out. This is the outside of the book. Also the design of the book, it refers a bit to the product itself. When I was actually making this book, I got contacted by a plastic recycling company called EcoO. They are in Belgium. And what was very interesting about it is they recycle plastics, very, very beautiful company. It's a very challenge already to design recycle plastic, but they came to me with a problem I also did not realize yet that it was so big till they came to me, is that they say, okay, we're recycling plastics, but we don't know, we don't have enough clients to work with this plastics that want to make new products out of it. So they asked me to make a sort of visualization in a book of their material and to show the beauty of their material, and to see inspire other designers and makers to start working with recycled plastics. And it's already quite a project I already did, I think in 2015, but I'm still showing it because I think it's still also good to be aware of that as a designer and making, you have a big impact, and that in the materials you choose. These are some examples of the visualizations. There were also some critical notes in, because I think this company back then was still doing a lot of mixed recycling of plastics, and I think we should try to focus on recycling plastics all sort by sort. But on the other hand, they were using all the rest materials. Well, I'm maybe going too much into detail about this, but I would love to explain you to this. But I think it's interesting to see is that we're all creating so much stuff around us, and that we really should look for how can we reuse those materials again and make it more circular. These are the outside of the books, and these are some of the models we made as a sort of inspiration, or maybe also future scenario, that maybe in the future we should only try to make buildings out of old plastics if we continue like this, and that we will live in a completely plastic world if we are not going to change the way we produce things. This is one more project I would like to talk with you about. It is a collaboration I did with Adidas. They contacted me because they saw the Flisco recycled carpets I made, and then they were contacted me if I also wanted to make some carpets for their stores. And then I thought, well, the carpets I truly designed for Flisco, and the material with Flisco, the waste material was being made in the Netherlands, and I was producing the carpets in the Netherlands, and I could oversee their production. So it was very logical product for me. And I thought, okay, if I want to work with them, I think that we should work with the waste material that they create, which is really happening here, which what they are making here. And also because I cannot, this is such a big company, and I cannot oversee all their entire production process. So I wanted to keep it close to myself and work with the waste materials they leave here behind. We're all wearing a lot of sports shoes, and they're a very difficult material to recycle, since there's like all kind of textiles and materials glued together. So you have a different type of plastic, textiles, all fixed together and very hard to take apart. I think I'm missing a few slides here, but I'm gonna try to explain it, because of course, when I collaborated with ICL, it's a company in Germany, and we shredded all kind of old shoes, and then of course you get a very gray mess. And by only to do one simple action, by dividing the shoes in a black group and in a lighter group, you could already make the material so much more beautiful, because you suddenly had two streams of the material with a light group and a dark group, and you suddenly can make very fresh looking graphical patterns. So these are the mats we made in the end. And what I like about it is that you, by using these leftover materials, these waste materials, you get a certain type of richness in your material that you wouldn't get when you would be using virgin new materials. So if you would make this out of black and white, it would be very boring. But now if you look up close, you can see all the different color dots from the previous shoes. This is another project we're working on now. I don't know if, I think they're you see them everywhere in Europe, but in the Netherlands you see a lot of these old wooden chairs. I think many people used to have them in their homes, and you see nowadays they're not so popular anymore. And in the thrift shops you see a lot of these chairs, and their function is still very good, but they are not being sold anymore. So I was thinking, okay, how can we, instead of designing a new chair and a new product, how can we perhaps give an upgrade to these old chairs and giving them a second life again. So what we did is we wrapped them around, and after that we gave them a new layer of paint, and there you reveal the dark lines you see are still the color of the old chair. So you see the previous material, the previous life of the chair, but you also give it completely new aesthetics. And by all combining the aesthetics together, you can also suddenly create a table with all the white chairs, but they are still a group, although they are all different shapes, and they still create one big family. Yes, I think I'm almost running out of time, but I'm gonna do one last project, which is getting back to where I started off my presentation with. The carpets I showed before. It's actually since a few months we're doing a new research with them. It's like, what else can we make of it, and can we control the color combinations even more? So we're doing a whole research on making new patterns, making new color combinations. And next to that, we're also researching if we can make more organic kind of shapes. And this is much more personal projects for me, since I think what I want to show with this is the the balance between the culture and nature, what is the balance in between that, and but it's also a reference for me is how always something new can grow out of something old, instead of how nature normally works. So these are all kind of sort of flower works made from the leftover textiles, and for me, yeah, it's like a new beginning in my personal work, but also in how waste material can always be a new beginning to make something else. So that's what I wanted to share with you. I hope I gave you a bit of insight in my work and maybe some inspiration on how to use craft and making to create new things. If you have questions, I'm very happy to answer them at the end of all the talks, and see you back then. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Simone. Really beautiful pictures there at the end. So I think we're probably going to have a lot of questions about your work. And I can see already some questions coming in as well. So yeah, we'll leave all of that for the discussion at the very end. And thanks again for taking the time to share that with us. If you're okay to stop sharing your screen, no problem. And we will let Victoria share hers, if that's okay, Victoria.
Yes.
Thanks very much.
Well, thank you both for these inspiring presentations. Really, you helped me a lot with my speech now. So, okay, can you see?
Perfect, Victoria.
It's okay? Okay. So after this, I mean, many of the things I wanted to say, they're already been said. So I just want to invest like a few minutes to understand why it's so important to really approach circularity and sustainability. And this is the current situation now. We have global challenges and climate change, energy production, soil erosion, biodiversity loss. I don't want to spend much time in these. And there is a few like population growth, resources, waste and consume that really are very related with what we are talking today now. And I wanted to show you this because next month will be the overshot day in Spain. And this means that overshot day means that it's a day in which we have consumed all the natural resources, all our budget for 1 year. And since that day on, we are all living in an ecological deficit. And if you can see the chart, you see that most European countries are in between March and May, and end of March, end of May. In those months, all European countries have used all the resources they had available. So as a result, we are really using more than we have. We are living in a finite planet, and we are using in madness, these resources as if they were limited. So we have just this one planet, but we are using 1.7 planets today. And you can see that European countries, again, are between 2 and 3 countries. Is that the way we want to live? Is that the way we really want to live and leave all the resources for the rest generations? I mean, linear production system is part of the problem. Is this take, make, waste process that we heard a lot about. And the GDP as a success indicator has been running our lives in the last 2 centuries. And it really goes with the infinite economic growth that is impossible to keep, impossible. We are passing from this unsustainable way of doing things that belong to the 19th and 20th century, which economy runs our lives, to this way of really approaching production and consumption and our way of living, in which we have to respect the ecosystem limits. And as society, we need to really redefine these new economies that help us to thrive. So this is a description of what it means to me, the ability to endure. Sustainability is the ability to endure, to guarantee quality of life and well-being of the ecosystems. At the same time, we have to promote development and prosperity, not just for us, but for future generations. And in order to do so, this redefinition of our economy is needed. I mean, sustainable economic systems can offer new opportunities, but also within the planetary boundaries. And in this new paradigm, there are many economies that are popping up, that are emerging, like the sharing economy, the circular economy, inclusive economy, and many others, blue economy from Gunther Pauli, the economy of the Commonwealth from Christian Felber, and one that I really love is the donut economy from Case Roswell. I cannot talk about it. I really love these things, but I don't have much time. Today, we are talking about circular economy and how crafts can contribute to this concept or this way of doing things in a different perspective. So this circular economy is related to industrial symbiosis. We will talk about it later, and it has a lot to do with Simone, what Simone explained that before. Eco-innovation, regeneration has a lot to do with Álbio's speech before also. Cradle to cradle, biomimicry, which is design inspiring nature, eco-design. And I want to focus in two concepts that are basic. They are the building blocks of the circularity. One is cradle to cradle, which is a concept that was launched by Michael Braungart, a chemist, and William McDonough, an architect. And in 2002, so it's been 19 years now. And of course, they had previous relation with it because it came out with Sahel and Lyle in the 80s. And this cradle to cradle concept is based on natural ecosystems, where is no concept of waste. I mean, nature is abundant. Nature can produce much more than we need. We can see it in trees, in spring, we can see it all over around us, but there is no concept of waste in nature. This abundance is translated in nutrition, in food. And how to take all these concepts and bring them in the, men's world, in our Anthropocene. So we have to design for continuous recovery and reutilization. At the end of the use, our materials have to become something new, as Simone explained before. Maximize the use of renewable energy, respect nature, promote healthy ecosystems, and celebrate diversity, which is resilient. And this is basic for a cradle-to-cradle concept. There is two flows of materials: the natural or bio-based material flow, which they call it biosphere, and the synthetic and non-renewables material flow, which they call technosphere. And these concepts are really the base of the MacArthur Foundation concept and the circular economy today. The biosphere regenerates the life systems, and the technosphere use this flow as a continuous loop in which materials are recycled. Afterwards, cradle to cradle became a certified a certification that you can use for your products. It's not hard to get because they are extremely exigent, but it's very interesting. Then we have the three principles of Ellen MacArthur. Ellen MacArthur is a foundation that is the biggest, I think, the most important accelerator for circular economy. in the world today. They collaborate with foundations, with universities, companies, etc. So the three principles are taken from cradle to cradle ideas is design out of waste and pollution, keep products and materials in use, regenerate natural systems. And this means a new way of designing, producing and consuming, also within the ecosystem limit or planetary boundaries. And this is a famous butterfly diagram. I don't want to explain it because it takes a lot of time, but just to tell you that in this diagram, you can see that the Ellen MacArthur Foundation has also differentiated and classified the two flows of materials, the stock management and the renewables flow management. That means the finite materials and the renewable materials. And as you can see, and I want to explain it here, the more value in this flow is when the loop maintains the integrity of the product. That means that when the user is close to the product, the farthest the loop from the user, the more energy you need to reintegrate those materials into the loop or into the flow. So this diagram shows you that maintaining and prolong the product close to the user is the first thing we have to do. Reduce, redistribute, and share is like the second step. Refurbish, remanufacture, and upgrade will be the third step. And at the end, the process that requires more energy and has less value within the circular economy is a recycling process. So recycling is great, but it's not the ultimate solution. So passing from this linear economy to the circular economy, this linear economy with technical and biological nutrients mixed up, which is a great problem at the end of the use of the product, to this circular economy in which we have two different flows of materials, we have to think about circularity and the way to achieve also the sustainable goals. So once we understand that circularity can help us to do so, and crafts have a main contribution in this consumption and production and sustainable development, we will see how crafts are related to all these concepts. Sorry if I go very fast, but I want to get into the thing now. And those are the targets related to the 12th SDG goal, which is sustainable design, sustainable development goals that are within the 2030 agenda, that of course are integrated in the new Green Deal, and of course in the new action plan for circular economy, all those European politics that are right now really taking place and in a very, very, I think, fast pace and accelerating change. So these 4 targets that I picked up from the whole set of targets, I think are extremely related with what crafts mean. It's sustainable management and efficient use of resources, management of chemist waste throughout the life cycle of the product, reduce waste, regeneration, prevention, reduction, recycling, and reuse, which are the principles also for maintaining the product or materials close to us the longest as possible. And then awareness for sustainable development and lifestyles in harmony with nature. This last one, I really like it. I think is the base for, or is one of the most, I don't know, concepts that are related to crafts since always. So those are the 6 points I want to talk about. And that's, I think, crafts' contribution to circular economy and sustainability. There are much more, but those are the ones that I really want to talk about today. And it's this life cycle approach, keep materials in use, keep products in use, design out of waste and pollution, resilience and local, and all means regeneration. Regeneration means nature, health. So talking about life cycle approach, I want to make a distinction between all these traditional way of crafts and the opportunities that crafts have now that they are not always tackling, I guess. All these opportunities that they are not always within the craftsmanship DNA. Life cycle approach is this holistic approach that the whole making system of the craft process, from extraction to raw materials to the use stage, has is a systemic way to approaching production with a special knowledge. And this specialist knowledge in materials and process, this knowledge is key for circular economy, can integrate innovation easily. This is very different from an industrial process in which everything is fragmented and you don't see the whole process at all. So now this is not very, so you don't get so used to see craftsmanship that really from raw materials. I mean, Álbio explained it very well before, from raw materials to manufacture, you have a control of the whole life cycle of the product. This is quite rare today. So the idea is work in this life cycle approach. Use these eco-design strategies that are they, or simple LCA tools that help you to, I mean, quantify what are your, not just emissions, but what are your impacts in a positive or in a negative way. For this, to monitor all the process, knowledge is critical. So I will say you have to understand what are the materials you are using for any of your designs or your production. And of course, integrating the end of use as a fundamental part of the whole process. I mean, what happens with your product once the user doesn't want it anymore? And that's a shift in the way we make things. We normally just take into account the product until we put it in the market. But this is not the end of it. I mean, what happens after? How many loops can your product sustain? The other point is keep materials in use. And we have seen many things from Simone explaining how she worked in what we call industrial symbiosis, which is extremely interesting, is using scraps from other industries. So this is what nature does. I mean, scraps equal food. And you can reuse scraps internally, as Plart, this example I'm putting you, did, this little crafts company, where she uses clays from different collections to make the patterns of new products. She uses leftovers in a very intricate, complicated process, but with a beautiful results. Or, as I said before, reusing scraps from our industries, industrial symbiosis, as Simone explained us before, and I don't want to extend myself. So design for recovery or disassembly is key, in not just in industrial design, also in crafts. Avoid mixed fibers or the use of materials from different flows in order to help to this differentiation and recover the materials. Keep materials in use, of course, can also be regenerative if you use natural materials. And if you use non-renewable materials, those materials should be at the end of use recovered or recycled again. Simone put an example first with different companies, the plastic company, and then the Blisco company that I had the chance to also see in Africa. And it's impressive. I mean, I think it's the most important fabric brand in Africa. Very well considered. And well, this example for me, it's quite interesting. It's Elvis and Cresse. They use fire horses from the London Fire Brigade. And it's very interesting because fire horses are meant to be long-lasting, extremely strong. They contain chemicals, of course, because they have to be protected in many ways, resistance, flexibility, temperature. So once they have a minimum flow, they are discarded from the system. So they decided to recover this fire hose and do a premium product, and they use it like if it was leather. The result is extremely astonishing. It's beautiful, and they really save 200 tons of material to go to the landfill. And they also recycle all the scraps from barberies, all the leather scraps, and this puzzle to recycle it in a very interesting way. So this company just exists because they are reusing scraps from other industries. Traditional crafts can keep products in use because they are not subject to fashion or trends. They are timeless. And this is a concept that for me is key in terms of keeping the product close to the user. Crafts products are lasting because of the quality materials. And besides that, they are embodied with cultural value. And this creates a special bond with the user. This cultural value is what really creates this feeling of belonging also. And the opportunities, as there is no planet or perceived obsolescence in crafts, is to continue this path. I mean, crafts are really shouldn't be trendy at all. Crafts should be more related to a cultural process that are ephemeral trend. We have to develop services to keep products in use. So why don't communicate in your websites how to maintain a product, how to use a product in a proper way, how to upgrade your own product, even giving services for that, and informing the customer of how to do or what to do to keep your product in the best shape possible. I do browse websites of crafts, of designers, of course, of craftsmanship, and rarely I see how to maintain a product that has an enormous value. And I think we have to really change the way we do things and give more services to the user. If you want to make this relationship long lasting also. And of course, storytelling is key. Storytelling is key to communicate the added value of a product. I have to understand where the product comes from. I have to understand what's the history behind it. I have to feel the same way you felt when producing it. This is a way I really want to keep my product close to me the longest as possible. And storytellings, I'm sorry to say that, are very poor in general. They're not enough to keep my spirit close to yours when I acquire a product. Design out of waste and pollution. I mean, this is key. Local natural materials, recover or recycle, and crafts use renewable energy. And of course, not all the crafts about the use of chemicals. Today, many suppliers for crafts and artisans use chemicals and toxics. You cannot guarantee that in an artisan product. Traceability from raw materials to the end of use is key also. Many craftsmanships, they really don't know, or artisans, they really don't know the whole life cycle of the products. If you ask them, they don't know where the leather comes from. They just bought it. They don't know if the tanneries could be vegetal or chromium. But at the end, they really don't know how the cow was taken care of, the welfare of the animal. So I think we have to impulse, we have to boost, or I don't know, we have to promote this knowledge. This is an example of a craft product with all the certifications. Certified materials give you at least this, me as a consumer, this traceability over the material, and sometimes also about social issues behind the material. Crafts are resilient by nature. They are a small scale production, distributed production. They're flexible to adapt to social and economic crises, much more flexible than big industries. The skills and knowledge were usually transferred from one generation to the other, which gives them the continuity in time. They're more sustainable, and they have an intimate relationship with nature. And this gives you more resilience. Understanding your context is also crucial if you want to adapt your production. And the threats and the opportunities are clear. It's difficult to continue to transmit this knowledge from generation to generation. It's very difficult to continue with the way of thinking today due to many things. Craft production takes more time than any other kind of industrial or chain production. So not always is appreciated the inputs and the values and the cost you put in. And as a result, many little companies, craft companies, have difficulties to make a living, which makes them very less sustainable. And I think we have to collaborate to create shared value. I mean, the crisis that artisans have in many ways, at least in Spain, is because they are also very individualistic as a process. I understand that creative process is a very personal process, but I do believe in collaboration. I do believe in gathering together in these 17 SDG alliances are key for sustainability. And finally, and this is obvious in traditional crafts, not so obvious in contemporary artisans, traditional crafts stimulate local economies. They create community and cultural identity. They preserve local knowledge. They not just that, but they reduce energy and supply chain cost by having local manufacture and local resources. And the opportunities are huge. Creative organizations and business, enjoyment, cultural diversity, towns that foster community pride. So this sense of belonging. And they help communities to thrive and be more desirable to live. And well, they encourage, improve self-esteem for individuals and encourage equality to life, which is, I mean, any artistic or creative activity improves your self-esteem. So this is just the end. I want to do this sum up of concepts for crafts are contributing very much and could contribute more in the future. Is thinking systems, collaborate, communicate value, regenerate nature, holistic approach, cultural identity, skills and knowledge, and accountability. We have to be responsible of our actions. And of course, this sense of community. And what I see is that sustainable development is a challenge and an opportunity. It's not a constraint when designing or conceiving new products. And thank you so much. I hope I'm in time.
Thank you very much, Victoria. That was really, really interesting. And I can see so many of the questions are already coming in for both you and Simone and Álbio. So thanks to everyone. Again, if you've any more questions for our panel, please either put them into the chat or the Q&A. But I was going to ask, yes, all of our panelists have their cameras on. Thanks, everyone. So our Vice President for World Crafts Council, Laura Miguel Bauerman, is going to facilitate the discussion. So I'll hand it over to you, Laura.
Hi, thank you, Shana. Hi, everyone, and thank you for following this very interesting seminar. First of all, I want to thank you, our three speakers, because I think it's not only me, but everyone could listen to you like for hours. All the things I just shared, the ideas, the concepts were really interesting. And to sum up a little bit, Álbio was the first one who intervened, and he talked about conscious design, considering tradition, materials, and design. Simone, she shared her experience in designing with used materials, with reusing, waste materials. And at the end, Victoria de Pereda, she shaped a little bit our consciences, sharing the data on the overuse of raw materials. And then she talked also a little bit about the circular economy and how crafts can be important in that. So we had a lot of comments, questions, and greetings on the chat. Several people were greeting us from different parts of Europe, and we are really thankful for sharing with us also your questions. And we are going to start with Álbio. Someone was asking where you are located. They want to know where your studio is, where you are working from. You unmuted. Maybe you can. Yeah. Okay.
Well, right now we are based in Lisbon. We have our time talking to you from Lisbon.
Okay.
We spend a lot of time in the field. We focus a lot in working side by side with a lot of network of craftsmen. But yes, yeah, that's the short answer. We are in Lisbon right now.
But you work with craftsmen from all over Portugal. When you say you go to the fields, is all around Portugal? Yeah,
Portugal, also in the islands, in the Açores. We have also been having a long relation with the craft center in Cabo Verde, the Craft and Design Center. And we also worked in Spain in 2009, 2010 with the Artesania Catalunya. During 2 years, we developed the project Ofícios Singulares, which was also, which could also be presented here in the end as this kind of a design approach to the country and how we can rethink the design practice with traditional crafts. I was thinking how you're listening to the presentations, that would be interesting also I focus a lot on this new project. Could be interesting also to talk about our studio a little bit. We, as a concept, now we started in 2004, 2005, and it was, for us, it was kind of a founding concept was to say we won't work with the industry. We will try to find an alternative way to make things that we can trace. It starts, as Victoria made it very clear, it always starts from materials. Materiality is very important in the design practice. But we felt right away after studying, we felt this accountability very, very heavy. When you are presented with your choices, which is very focused on industry, on the industrial design. We were trained as industrial designers. And we decided not to work on that scale. We wanted to know more about the things that we could do with the tools that we were given with this training and education. How could we do things better? As years later in a workshop, a student said, yes, I studied design, but now I want to do something good. So this is kind of the weight of this profession, no? With all its potential and the opportunities that can give to our world. And we decided this from the beginning. So we didn't look for the crafts. We kind of looked at how could we do things responsibly, you know, with conscience. How could we do things in an ethical way? And the only way is when you see the whole spectrum of things being made. So we started in Portugal, in the south, and I remember when it started to become clear. So how do you make products in a responsible, conscious way? And we arrived to the craftsmen, to these local artisans, because we tried to make things. So we didn't go to the crafts. We didn't look for crafts. It kind of became clear that this was a system that could really provide all the layers that we were looking for a product: the responsibility, the ethics, the ecological framework, the relation to nature, and then also this heritage and relation to culture, which in the end puts everything into context. That's why we say situated. They're not traditional. They're kind of result of the permanence in a place. That's why also for us, this relation with the crafts and working with the crafts is something that is kind of in the DNA of the studio. We like everything also that you see there in this project, Origem Comum, that you see here. We are sure that we work with these people for long, so we know that these materials, where they were picked, how they work, there's 100% natural. There's no machines involved in this, in others, yes. But we make sure that we know it's a building of a trust relation in the end. And I think in the end to make things that you can kind of dispose of it like this, you know, you can throw it behind your back. And it's not even visual pollution. It's kind of nourishes the environment. And this is possible. I could make you a trip through the studio now. It's full of things from years and years of experiments. Look, this is just a new experiment. This is made with Ricardo Lopes, a ceramist that we worked for a long time. And with Ricardo, it's very interesting. He's very, very experienced, and he ceramist, and he has this passion for red clay. And we experiment a lot together. And so Ricardo, we challenged him again for a commission for Porto Design Biennale, and he fired this until nonsense. So he fired this clay 60 to 80 degrees above what was recommendable. And now we are testing it, and I'm not sure, but since last week, there was no water coming through this. So what means is that with red clay, without any glazing, there's no glass here, there's no glazing, it's only clay and heat. We made maybe a fully impermeable cup, okay? I don't know where this goes, but it's interesting. So what we focus here, we put a lot of importance, a lot of value on skill, because we believe that skill is probably the most sophisticated thing. That if you think that we have materiality, we have technology, because the crafts, it's situated, traditional crafts, they also have a design process, and they have very specific technologies. But if you look and you kind of put a filter through it, and you see what develops all the time and what changes, and what you see that the curve goes up, it's skill. That improved, that continues to improve. Technologies, they change a bit. They are also influenced by high technology and the new technologies and new sources of energy. But what continues to grow is skill. So knowledge applied into production. Ricardo, for example, it's a young ceramist, it's an example of this. So he learned already from masters, he went to schools, he did his residencies in Japan and India. So he did the work, he studied, and now he continues to develop. But he doesn't use any new tools or any sophisticated equipment. He just builds on skill. So kind of he knows more and more and more and more. And what this tells you is that, it tells us that you can improve. Skill is sustainable, no? Skill and knowledge are sustainable, they don't pollute. So this, what tells us is, and we see this not only with him, with other people, is that there is a real opportunity here to build our material culture. And then you say, yes, but people want other things also. That's why, and I wanted to make this point, and maybe it was not clear with all this confusion, is the first thing that we have to work is, and I think Victoria also mentioned this somehow, is this pedagogic approach to consuming. So we have to work on making people understand the value of what there is. So kind of draw back from this kind of drug of novelty, constant novelty, and wanting to know something else, and something new, something more, something bright, you know, that kind of blinks the whole time, and appreciate natural materials, appreciate to know from where things come. Because these things, I mean, I'm surrounded here by stuff, these things, they're not made to last. I mean, this is palm weaving. You have it also in Andalusia and the Algarve a lot. These things, they were disposable. This is the closest thing that you would have to a plastic bag. This is not made to last. It doesn't need any storytelling. It shouldn't be made to be preserved or long lasting. This has its time. This is a disposable object. It serves its purpose and then it's supposed to be thrown away. It doesn't last so long. You know? If they last longer, they're good, better quality. But in the end, they're kind of what we have today for a tote bag or a plastic bag. You know? But they fulfill their purpose in a better way when we think about trash and pollution. So why not start from there to think about these products? And therefore, I think like somebody said in an interview we were making the other day, the pandemic crisis gave us the opportunity to listen to the crazy people, in the sense that there were a lot of writers, theorists, and also the indigenous community, especially in Latin America, that were talking and screaming certain things for a long time. Suddenly now this kind of has an opportunity to be heard. And it's all, if it starts, if we look back, looking also at what socialist, a social theorist, Boaventura Sousa Santos, Portuguese, says. He says that we have to look into colonization again. You know? So this is a decolonization process. Colonization brought us this way of not listening, of not understanding other ways, of not giving opportunity to other ways of conceiving life, of understanding nature. It's kind of Eurocentric perspective that dominates all over. So, and to be able to hear these other ways of making, which is other ways to understand the environment, to understand the planet, to understand life and nature, where other cultures, nature is an organism, it's life, it's not a resource, because what we look now is river, mountains, water, wood, forests. We look at it as objects, as resources, things that you use. And there are other cultures where this is life, where the river is a brother, the mountain is our grandfather, mother is nature. So, and we live inside nature, but we say nature is something separate from us. And I think we are in a moment now when we can have this very deep, very primal discussions and review what is the design process. I mean, how much of this craft culture is inside design education right now? I don't know. No, I think it would be an opportunity to rethink design education also, so they understand all this the systemic traditional crafts way of making, instead of looking at it as something from the past, something that give it an opportunity, not only looking at it with industrial perspective.
Okay, thank you, Alina. I only asked you where you were based, and
Sorry?
I only asked you where you were based. And no, but I'm really thankful for your reflection, because I think you pointed out very interesting things that I think other people are asking also on the chat, and I'm going to ask the other two speakers too. But no, thank you. I think for this one, you will give me a short answer, I'm sure, because someone is asking for the website of the project. Maybe you can write it down in the chat box, okay, so that you can share it, please, because I checked your website and there are really many interesting projects related to crafts and to design. So maybe you can put your website on the one of the project you just shared with us. Okay, thank you. There are also a lot of questions for all of you, and now I wanted to ask Simone, because there are two people asking almost the same. One is asking how will the old carpets be reused, and another question is, do you have also an idea on how to recycle your products in the future?
Yes. No, thanks a lot for this question, and thank you so much, Victoria and Álbio, for your interesting thoughts. I think I recognize a lot also in the things that Álbio said as a sort of, I graduated 5 years ago, and during, I recognize the sort of struggle you can have as a designer, that you are sort of fascinated first by making things, and then you suddenly get to know this world and you see how everything works, and you find out that there's so much being destroyed by making things. So I was, as a designer, also quite stuck, for a while during my studies, and in the end I decided that I wanted to research. Of course, there's not so much making industry left here in the Netherlands. Almost everything is being abroad, and I think for me it was a way of thinking, okay, how can I make things and only use waste materials to create them, and also the waste materials that are here in my country, in my position, to sort of think about that. So that's where I'm still searching for, because my aim in the beginning was, my first goal was, okay, I do want to challenge, like work with these big industries to do challenge, to make I wanted to make a bigger impact, because I saw so many good initiatives around me that always sort of kept small. And I wanted to see, okay, can I collaborate with those industries and to have at least work with their waste materials to make a sort of bigger impact. But in the end, I'm also more and more realizing this is a very big struggle and a very big challenge to take on. So I've in the past years more and more focused on making actually my own products. So everything I make is made in here in my own studio and made by hand. So in that sense, I almost became sort of the crafts workshop myself, and incorporating then you can control the entire production of the making process. So that is a bit my way of how I'm dealing with those questions I got as a designer. for the making of the carpets, till now we didn't got any of them back. What we do, we have always said for people, like we always have a list of everyone who has a carpet and mentions then that they can return it back to us. We did sometimes that we fix, for example, but we find it very important that we have a sort of repair service. So if anything ever breaks, that it comes back and then we fix it instead of. So that's the way we're dealing with that at the moment. So I hope that's a good answer. I can imagine there's a lot more questions and a lot more answers. And I'm also a bit running out of time. I know, see, it's already a bit late, so I will try to keep it a bit short. And
okay.
yeah.
No, thank you, Simone. Yeah, I think your answer was really clear. And if you don't mind, we're going to continue a little bit more because I know we are past the time, but I think it's really interesting. And if nobody says something, we are going to continue because there are many questions. And I think if you don't mind, I'm going to continue. And if someone has to go, just say it and then we will stop.
Yeah.
Victoria, someone was asking me, asking us, yeah, if you can share the reference of the types of economies that you were speaking about, and you said you loved one in particular. So if you can write it down in the chat, it would be great. So we don't listen to you yet.
Yeah, I think it was written already. I said that the donut economy was extremely interesting and because it incorporates the rest somehow. And it's Kate Russell, the author. I will write it for you afterwards.
Okay.
If you don't mind. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you,
anyway, it's in my presentation also. So.
Okay, yeah, that's one thing that I wanted to say also, that we are going to share the presentation afterwards in the Worldcraft Council Europe website. I have here also, Margot was saying that recycling makes waste more acceptable, as you said, Victoria. And I wanted to ask you if you agree that it isn't in reality.
No, well, recycling is the last, as I said, is the last thing we should think about when we are producing something. And waste is not acceptable ever. I mean, what circular economy is promoting is to not minimize waste, is to eliminate waste from our processes. And because the only waste that is not possible to be composted, or I want to say something also at Álbio when he talked about the basket. No, the basket was meant as a carrying thing with a very short life. This is from the past. We cannot afford today human labor, which is high value, invested in a product, and then throw it away. Today is not acceptable. We cannot do that. So there are many other materials that can be used that way. But if we talk about eco-effectiveness, which is all a main concept also for circularity, is that this product can be effective and at the end of its life can go to nature, and the end of the use, I will say, can go back to nature and be composted, which is acceptable. I mean, all natural materials that regenerate and are nourishing for our soul are acceptable, of course, not using at all chemicals and stuff. But anyway, the high value that is embedded, that is embodied in a product like a basket cannot be meant today to be thrown away in a very short time. It's a totally different scenario. There are products meant for that can accomplish the function in a much better way. So we have to take what traditional crafts gave us, and which is immense, and then somehow update our way of doing things, because we have a lot of materials that are there, like non-renewable materials, which cannot be wasted, and I'm answering the question, but has to be thought to reintegrate in a loop, in a flow. And this is very easy to say, and it's very hard to do. I'm a designer myself, so it's very hard to do, because you have to deal with all the chemistry which is in the products. And of course, if you change and recycle a product, the chemistry has to be taken out. So it's quite a difficult process and a very expensive one in terms of energy. When I'm talking about expensive, it's not just economically or financially, it's about value embedded in a product. So at the end, we have to think about how to do things in a better way to reintegrate our products in cycles that today can be, just to say in textiles, chemically recycled, but the high cost of this process doesn't make it not just affordable, ideal for any kind of production making. So I guess that recycling is the last thing we have to think about when we are producing something.
Okay, thank you, Victoria. It was really clear. Marta is asking, she says she absolutely loves Simone's presentation, and she says, as someone with a background on fashion design education, she learned very little about sustainability in fashion during school, as they were always encouraged to buy and use new materials without a care on where they came from and their history. So she asked, what's education role on our way to a more sustainable creative process? And how can we make industries like fashion, creative industries, see beyond themselves and work together? I think this question was for Simone, but everyone can answer.
Well, it's very interesting because I completely recognize the story, because actually myself, since I showed the picture, I was always sewing as a child. I first started studying fashion, and I came across the exact same struggles, because I was in the first year and we were getting material classes, like what kind of textiles do you have? And I was asking, what is the impact of those materials, and what are better materials to use and not? And then it was like a 60-year-old teacher, very from the old-fashioned Paris haute couture scene, and she was like, well, that's not important, that's not where this is about, and fashion is not about sustainability, and it's yeah, she didn't care about it, so she was not going. And I think it's really a problem that's still in, and it was one of the reasons after I stopped the study and I changed to the Design Academy in Eindhoven. But I think it's such a problem that there's still, on so many levels, so many really old-fashioned inputs in the teaching system. And I think it would be of great value if that should really be implemented more and more, I think. But I think it's also good, because I have also been teaching myself sometimes as a guest tutor. And what I also see on the other hand, it's also, I see a lot of students nowadays almost getting completely blocked, because they cannot feel like they can not make anything anymore. They are already afraid to use a piece of paper to draw something on. And it's also a hard balance how to look for this, because I think it's also good for, if there's designers listening, it's also good to realize that on your own you cannot solve the whole world. Like you shouldn't, that thought shouldn't block yourself from doing anything. It's good to just focus on one, I think on a small small problem or a small workshop or one material and try to see how you can improve that, because I also see that the people that care, they get blocked and don't do anything anymore, and that's also a sort of a strange yeah, something we do not want. So yeah, I don't know if it's really an answer on our question, but
yeah, I think so. Thank you, Simone.
yes.
There's another question for you from Marjorie. She says, how do you determine a good price for a handmade product made from waste material?
Yeah, that's as Victoria also explained already a bit, there's also a lot of labor is also already a lot of value and money and something that is invested in a product. And I think in that sense, I'm also I also sort of really against, for me, recycling is when you sort of reuse something and make it less value than it was before. So you often see with materials that they're being recycled, and for example, I could also use the Vlisco textiles to make isolation for a house, and then it's recycled. Of course, that's also still something I could do in the future, but for me, that would be the very final step, as Victoria explained. I think in between, it's good to see how you can add value on something instead of make it lose value. So the price is, with us, it's often determined by how much time was spent to make it, yeah, so because the materials is often free. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you, Simone. Christina is asking Álbio about craft products and their original design. How do they meet our contemporary needs? And how to bring attention to these products? How to make them useful today? These are questions for Álbio from Christina.
Why are they not useful today?
No.
Yes, I'm just making a provocation in the end.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, here we can grab what Victoria was saying, which is a long. I would love to continue this discussion, Victoria, because it's very, very, very important. You know what you said about the value of labor, which is what we are always discussing now, and we think a lot about it. But I don't agree with fully, because it's long discussion. It's not something that we can do here like this. We needed more time, which is the question. We have to then compare what is utensils, what is their function, compare it with the actual, let's say, do a cántaro or a sillo, how you call it in Spain, and then put a plastic bottle and say what we have on one side, and then we will have a lot of questions. So from material, for production time, waste. And if we compare, for example, let's say a tote bag to a palm basket, and then we have to analyze the durability, the sourcing, and the waste. And maybe it's like when we say it's not affordable, we have to see, are the clothes that we buy at Zara or Bershka or Mango, are they affordable? Well, they are somebody is paying for them. We are not, but somebody is paying. And maybe they are not affordable, but we don't know this because they are kind of made somewhere else where we cannot analyze this. And the work that we have close to us, when things are sourced in our context, then we can analyze, and then we can say, okay, this basket took 3-4 hours plus all the material sourcing plus, and it costs 10 euros. this is not acceptable. And now we can say this. No? That's why after so many years of discussion now, for example, we really, and that's why I like this what Victoria said, because this, we have to provoke this. And we had so many discussions also with people from finances, how to make this online shop. And we reached the conclusion, okay, we're going to have a price policy. You cannot reach a policy of price because you cannot also kind of pay more for the fair. You cannot pay the fair price because then you're destroying the market. We did this also. So what we do now is we pay what craftsmen ask, and we really want to provoke this. So because people say, what, this only costs this? Yes, isn't this a real shame? Shouldn't we really do something about this? So it's a consumer and producer and designer and politician society. We have to kind of discuss this. So this affordability and the labor, the value of manual labor is central to our society. We have to discuss this. I really hope that we have the opportunity to discuss this more because it's a central design question. It's at the fundament of the profession. But to answer to the question more directly, well, yes, I mean, what are these contemporary needs that we don't have? I mean, if we look, these things, they carry and preserve water for you. They carry your things, they provide you drinking vessels, cooking pots. What are these new needs that we have from the last 200 years that we have to fulfill so desperately? Technology, this high technology really improves communication. We can, what we are doing here now. Yeah? Of course, with 19th century technology, we cannot do this. This is great. This is really great. But all on the other basic needs, we could question, because of course, some of these skills, techniques, and technologies do not provide all the things we want, but they provide a lot of what we need as basic. In this, you can increase your utensils and your tools for living, for cooking, for eating, for drinking. You can still use all of these things. I was watching a documentary from Brazil. I can share the link about cooking clay pots. And I was amazed how there was one woman from an association who said, I was seeing inox coming into our lives. I was desperate. I had to save the clay pot. Because she says, you cannot compare it. You know, like the food, how it breathes, the food lasts longer inside, it doesn't rot, it doesn't become acid. And I was thinking, yeah, well, there is kind of an argument, a sales argument also, no? And acquisition, a buying argument also that we can use and think, is it better? I don't say if it's better, but I think it's used. We should take the chance of trying to use these things, because what happens if we look at, let's talk about pots or carrying bags, that what we had before and what we have today, they become lighter, everything becomes fast, but does it become better? Everything becomes cheaper, but we have more quality in what we get in the end result. Is it the food? Is it the water? And this clay vessel, the water breathes, stays longer, tastes better, it doesn't die out. No? If we have a plastic bottle, we all know what happens. No? It cannot stay in the sun, the light creates all sorts of things inside. So it's a long debate. It's not like one is better than the other. This doesn't exist. No? It's not black and white. No? As you saw in Victoria's presentation, like, how much complex is all these things, and how can we kind of look at all this and evaluate all the parameters that this involves, no? Because we are a lot of people and we have to supply for a lot of people, and we have all to have good living conditions. So this look into crafts should be kind of an inspiration on its philosophy and kind of a starting point again. And I don't think we should look at it as something from the past and ask how can it become contemporary. It is contemporary. I know all the people who do this, they're still alive. They're there living and they're today with us. It is contemporary. That's the kind of a crazy thing. Why is somebody doing that basket that takes 10 hours to make still in the same way? Why that? And what was going on here? Why you do 2021 with all these cell phones and computers and stuff, but there are people who still doing that in the same way and keep on repeating. And it's an opportunity for us to confront with other systems and other ways of making and bring real hard questions. No? This contrast is very interesting. It's an opportunity for us to question a lot of things. It's not about bringing the old and making it new, updated, make it contemporary, painted in different colors, changing the shapes. You can do all that, that's good. But the real opportunity here is to have this contrast, which we are fortunate of having, and making hard questions. You know, like when Victoria said, "Do we really want to live in this world because we are wasting?" Yeah? Like it's not a question about living in this world. There will be no world. This is unsustainable. It won't last. You know, we already have the depth of 3 generations. Where are we going to go? There is no possibility to continue like this. It's not like living. It's not living. We have to somehow rethink the whole thing and look at different ways of understanding, relating with the environment. Yeah, that's cool.
Okay, thank you. I mean, we are really running out of time. I'm really sorry because there are many questions that I would have loved to ask them, but we need to stop at some point. I invite you to watch afterwards all what is said in the chat because there are really interesting contributions and some people are suggesting things and they are sharing also links. Maybe we can sum up something in our website where we can put this. Maybe to finish, I would love to ask you for a last sentence, please, only sentence, not short sentence on what do you think the future in this crafts and sustainability will be or you would like to be. Please start, I don't know, Simone.
Yeah, wow, that's one sentence is tricky. You already heard in the discussion how hard and many different aspects of this, but I truly hope there will be more space for small and I think more local makers, and that in that sense, so the world hopefully gets more equal, and in that sense labor as well. So, and it will also make sure that there will be more making and labor here in Europe. That's what I hope for the future. But it's a small sentence. Sorry, I wrote, but I really have to go because I have another appointment. But
okay.
It was super interesting. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much, Simone. Victoria, what do you think? What would you say? You have to unmute yourself. Yeah.
I really love to keep talking to Álbio about many things we heard because just one thing, affordability in terms, not only economic terms, don't misunderstand me, affordability in terms of planetary boundaries or planetary needs, and avoid the plastic. And I hate bottled water. This is something I have to say because I don't drink bottled water. I think it's one of the worst things that humankind could invent. Besides that, I would love to talk about connection. For me, crafts should be, first of all, connect with nature, which is crucial connect with nature in a broader way, connect with each other to have this shared value that we really need, and of course connect to yourself to understand how you can be conscious when doing something, this responsibility. So it's like three levels of connection: yourself, nature, and others.
Thank you, Victoria. That is really nice. Álvio, if you want to add something, very short, please.
Yeah, very short, sorry. Again, my presentation was so clumsy that then it came all back. Yeah, I agree with Victoria. It has to be about connections, shared economy, shared responsibility, shared accountability. And somebody was saying here in the chat about consumer education. I don't know if it's education. I don't think we have to impose something again to people. It's kind of involvement. You know, we have to involve everybody in the processes. And the affordability discussion, price attribution, the value of labor discussion, the materials discussion. We have to involve. I think that's the translation about this issue with the storytelling that people are talking so much about. We need storytelling. And I think that what this means is that we have to involve everybody, that people understand what's behind the products that are done. You know? Today we heard Simone, so we know what she's doing. When we see the products, now we know better what's going on behind. If we would have this with everything, it's kind of a transparency issue, you know, that we have to overcome. It has to be clear to everybody what was involved in making your coffee cup and your coffee. And I think if we go over and if we reach this, it's great.
Thank you very much, Álvio. I want to say a big thank you to you three, to Victoria, Simone, and Álvio for sharing all their views and expressful ideas and thoughts. I'm sure that we can continue with this for hours. I think it's really interesting, but we have to stop here. Also, we want to thank all the viewers, all the listeners, also the ones that will see that afterwards. Thanks to the new technologies, this is possible. And yeah, just keep in touch, and goodbye, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Ciao.
Bye.
So